Well, unfortunately for the Blue Jays, their baseball season came to a premature end of last weekend, despite the fact that they won 35 games and it had an undefeated record in midweeks, won the state championship by beating both Nebraska and Omaha, didn't lose a single game in 6 tries against either of them, but yet didn't quite make it to the Big East tournament. Well, today it was announced that Ed Servais next year will coach his 22nd and final season with the Blue Jays, and they will be announcing an associate head coach who will join the staff next year and then be the head coach in waiting for 2026. And the head coach of the Jays, still your head coach of the Jays, Ed Servais, joins us on the 42 Degrees of Source hotline. Coach, thanks for coming on.
You bet, John. Good talking to you.
Well, I know this had to be a difficult decision for you. At what point did you start weighing the timeline of how you wanted things to work?
Well, probably, maybe even a year ago. I want to make sure I can maintain my health. I want to make sure that I can give the players what they need. And I didn't want someone to have to tell me that, hey, you're lacking a little bit in this area or this area, and you're not quite the same as you were, 5 years ago or whatever. So I didn't want anybody to have to tell me that. I wanted to feel that. I still believe I can give the players what they need as far as teaching and instruction and development and those kind of things. But I started to consider it and saying, okay, when is the right time and how should this be done? And I had a great meeting with Marcus on Saturday. We talked about the vision. We talked about what we want to see in Creighton baseball. And then, that I was going to retire. And it was a mutual agreement that this would be our last year. And then it was his decision that we would go ahead and hire an associate head coach. And that would be the coach in waiting. And I'm in full agreement with that. I think that's how the process should work. And I'm so happy that he's on board with that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, Coach, the idea of coming back for one more year instead of, having your final game over this past weekend and being able to hand it off to somebody. How important was that ultimately in making the decision for this moment in time?
Well, I really want to enjoy one more year. We were blessed this year. I know we fell short in a couple areas, but this was a special team. This was a close group of guys. It was easy to go to practice with them every day, easy to travel with them, very easy to enjoy them. And we return a lot of players, so I think we'll have the same kind of situation next year. And I thought I can give them what they need one more year, and I wanted to enjoy it and know that, hey, when we go to Seton Hall next year, that obviously that'll be the last time I'm at Seton Hall. And when I go to this place next year, that'll be the last time I'm at this particular place. And then when we get toward the end, a lot of that stuff will kind of sink in. But I think this is the right way. I don't know if there's ever a perfect way to do this, but I think this is the closest to perfect way of doing it.
When you joined and, became head coach in 2004, you were on the staff just prior to that. Did you ever imagine that roughly 25 years later, you would still be at Creighton?
No. And when Jack Down brought me over, 27 years ago, I thought I would stay for 2 or 3 years and then get another job somewhere else because I wanted to be a head coach again. I had been a head coach already at a lower level, but I had been a head coach, and I thought, okay, I'll go work at Creighton for a couple, 2 or 3 years and build up a resume again and then become a head coach at another institution. Never, ever, ever did I think I'd become the head coach at Creighton. And never, ever did I think I would be there for 28 years. And that's what it's going to end up being. I enjoy Omaha. My family enjoys Omaha. I'm so glad that we stayed. I enjoy the mission of Creighton University, which is not just devoted toward the winning component, but the academic component as well, too. And I believe they both have to go hand in hand. So I think I found my niche. A lot of folks go through work and they don't find a passion for what they're doing. I was lucky enough. I found my passion in coaching baseball. I was lucky enough to find it here at Creighton University.
Coach, I wanted to ask you just about Creighton as a whole, because I've talked with many folks, whether it's coaches, whether it's behind the scenes people, whatever, about family and the idea of that with this university. What is it about this place that has been so special for so many, including yourself, for such a long amount of time, where it feels that way, where it feels like family to that degree?
Well, it's different. There's no doubt. And I think the smallness of the university certainly helps. We know each other. We care. We all kind of have the same mission, and that includes the faculty that work here, the staff that work here, not only the coaches, but our mission is to help the students. We want our students to be successful, and I feel that in every walk on campus, and I think that's special. So we're all pulling in the same direction, which is very important. And I think the city of Omaha has something to do with it too. Not only Creighton University, but the city is a very attractive to, like in my case, myself, because I had a young family when I moved here, and I wanted my family to have an experience in a city like this, and we found it. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and obviously we've been blessed to have two athletic directors that allow us to coach the way we want to coach. They're not micromanaging us, and I think we as coaches appreciate that.
Ed Servais joining us. He announced today that next season, 2025, will be his last at the helm of the Blue Jays. An associate head coach will be hired during the offseason, a coach in waiting who will serve on the staff next year and then take over as Ed took over for Jack Dahm after the 2003 season many years ago. This year was just so different. I talked about, the accolades of not losing a midweek game, sweeping your in-state rivals, but then the weekends, it went so differently. Have you yet been able to put your finger on why the biggest differences were between midweek and weekend success this year?
No, I wish I would have been able to figure it out when we were going through it, because, we played some excellent baseball in midweek, against Coastal Carolina. I'll never forget that series. And, our Nebraska games and so on, that the players were so competitive and so in tune to the game and so engaged in the game. And sometimes on weekends, we just were missing that. Usually it's the opposite. Usually a coach is very worried about midweek games, because a lot of times your athletes are tired and they're coming from class to play a night game or whatever. And usually on the weekends, you see a little bit more of that freedom, because Saturday, Sunday, they're not in class, and, they're more rested, they're more eager to play. It was just the opposite for us. It was the most different kind of season I've ever experienced, because the players were so fun to work with. I felt for them as we went through that spell where we didn't play well. They were hurting. They were really hurting, and I felt for them. And as a coach, you want to help, and I don't know if we were able to do that. I'm thankful that we finished with some wins, so the players felt good toward the end of the season. But I'm sure today they're still kind of hurting a little bit and realizing that, many conference tournaments are starting as early as tomorrow, and we're not going to be a part of it.
Coach, you just said it was a different kind of season than one you've ever been a part of. Obviously, then next year will be too, for an entirely different reason. I wonder, as you have had this on your mind and you make the decision that you do, how much you have thought about what that is going to be like, just the emotions of it all, but also trying to take in the day-to-day, maybe in a different way, but also in the same ways that you always have, just so it doesn't, affect the play on the field.
Well, I'm sure it's going to take, I'm sure that the feel of the day is going to be much different next year. Every practice, every game, so on and so forth. My biggest job is going to be so it doesn't affect the players. I want the attention to be on the players. I'm not looking for any fanfare. I'm not looking for any ceremonial last game stuff. I'm not looking for any of that stuff. I want the players to have a good season. I want the focus to be on the players. So I'm going to have a job on my hands to make sure I deflect that, and it goes on to the players. They deserve it. It's their time. I've had a bunch of years doing this. I've been lucky enough to do it at a great place. I've been healthy enough to do it. But I'm going to do my darndest to make sure that we don't talk a lot about, this is his last time he's playing this school. This is the last time he plays these guys. And then we're going to put the attention on the players where it belongs. And that'll probably be my biggest challenge as we work through the spring.
Ed, as you know, this day and age in college sports, it's hard to keep players around. do you think this announcement coming when it did, how kind of everything's going to be mapped out, will that make your job easier in terms of keeping as much of your current roster that you believe you're going to have intact?
I'm not sure, John. I'm looking forward to trying to get together with as many players who are in the area tomorrow. Marcus is going to Zoom call with them tomorrow. And I'll probably have a better understanding tomorrow where they're at. They're probably confused today. They're probably a little anxious, and that's right. There's no wrong in feeling that way. But I definitely want those guys to be a part of our season next year. They're a very close group. So I'm hopeful that we can, retain all of them, if not most of them, for next year. But it's a different world we live in right now. So I'm not sure how this whole thing is going to work out. But I know myself and the administration is going to do everything to make sure that the players have as much information as to the course of what, Marcus wants for the vision of our program. And I know he'll do a great job in communicating that tomorrow when he meets with them.
Coach Ed Servais joining us, announcing today that next year will be his final season as the head coach of the Blue Jays. As far as the process of picking that associate head coach / coach in waiting, how much of a say will you have? Do you want to have in that process?
I'll have input, but Marcus will make the final decision. So I'm sure there's going to be some candidates that they may ask, hey, do you know this guy? Do you know his background? Do you know much about him? And so on. But I probably won't have as much, and that's okay. Marcus knows how to hire people. He'll do a great job. He'll have his search firm, his committee that he works with. It'll help make the decision for him. I'll have some input. I don't know how much. I'm okay with either case because this is Marcus, his decision. So I just want somebody, and I know Marcus wants somebody too that's compatible with me, that we can work together. That my goal is to, every university, every institution has a certain way of doing things. And I think Creighton has a certain way of doing things. And hopefully this new person, I can help him understand that way so that when I leave, he can take it off and run with it. That's my goal. And I'm confident that we will achieve that.
What are your emotions like right now, Coach?
It's hard, John. It's hard. It's tough, but it's, I've been so fortunate. I look back I got calls today from some of the guys, and some of the former players. And, when these kind of things happen, one of the good things is you hear from your former players, so it gives you a chance to get caught up with them a little bit. And it's so cool to talk to these guys because they're so successful and they're so appreciative of their time here at Creighton. So it makes you feel good about what you're trying to do. But yeah, these aren't easy days. I know some people look forward to retirement and they're jacked up about it and they're excited about it. And I'm excited because I'll spend more time with my family and my grandkids who I don't see much in the spring, but it's not going to be all that easy. When you've been doing something as long as I have, you don't just walk away the next day and say, hey, this is great. It's going to take some time, but that's okay. It'll be a good year in 2025, and then we'll be the biggest cheerleader for Creighton baseball for as long as I'm around.
I can't imagine you not having something to do with baseball in your life. I have to assume.
I'd like to work, I'd like to work with young people, John.
Yeah.
I'd like to help, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. I'm passionate about young people and learning how to execute the game the proper way. So whether I do something with young people to, help them in their development, maybe it's something that we decide to do, but we got time to figure that out.
I'm not going to ask for much because I probably don't deserve it, but can I make one request?
Sure.
Can we take one more bus trip to a Valley location? Can we? I don't know how much of the schedule next year is set, but can we go to Wichita one more time and grab the bus and, stop at the truck stop and, everyone eats and then you're sitting up front and you're drinking your Coke and that's all you're doing? Can we just take one more bus trip?
Well, we could go to Wichita and get a hamburger at Spangles.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
That's the place at Wichita. Well, the schedule is not totally complete, so there's always a chance, John. So if you want to get on a bus for a 9-hour trip to Carbondale, maybe we can work it out. But, we do miss those trips. Those trips were so interesting because
Yes, they were.
I think it forced the players to really get comfortable with each other, and of course, they weren't too much fun when we lost coming back on a 9-hour trip. If you lost the Sunday game, but they were. Yeah, those were some interesting times, some different times, and some good times.
I'll take any bus trip to any Valley location except Evansville. I got problems with that.
Yeah, especially on that rain delay that day, John. You were a little anxious. You wanted to get, and then we were going to stay there until that game was complete because we needed that game.
Oh, I know.
We didn't care how late that game went.
We pulled into Omaha at like 3:30. I got back to Lincoln at 5 and was on the air at 5:30.
Gross.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was one heck of a trip.
Yeah, that was a good ending to that game.
Yes, it was. We needed that win.
Yes, we did.
So here's what the deal was. So we blew a lead, went into extra innings, scored 4, I think it was, in the top of the 10th, and then all hell broke loose. The rain hit. And of course, in baseball, if you don't finish the inning, the game goes back to the last completed inning. It would have been a tie. And we were like, no, we're staying here. We're going to finish this game. And the Evansville people had no interest in finishing this game.
No, not at all. Not at all. And to this day, Wes Carroll probably doesn't appreciate it too much. He's the head coach at Evansville, but they had no interest in finishing. I said, no, we got a bus, guys. We're not on any time schedule here. We can stay as long as we can. Actually, Carson Vitale got the extra base hit with the bases loaded that day.
That's right.
And Carson, he's a bench coach for my nephew Scott in Seattle right now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that game will be one of the games that you don't forget because of the importance of it, and then this 2-hour rain delay. And then I remember we ran Brandon Koningstein out there to pitch, and Ozzie said, just throw fastballs down the middle because we got to get out of here. And I think they actually scored a run or two off them, but we finally won the game, got on the bus, and got back to Omaha.
Was that the same weekend you got kicked out of the game before?
You know what? It could have been. Remember when I was down the corner?
Well, yeah. David and I are sitting in the broadcast booth, and you're gone. We're like, I wonder where Coach went. He's probably on the bus. And all of a sudden, I see this lone guy walking out beyond the chain link fence along the highway. And it's like, wait a minute, that's Ed.
Yeah, we were back in those days. They didn't walk you off the field. They trusted that you would disappear. Well, I disappeared, okay, but I still saw the game. I wasn't too good in the bus when we played. And then I we used to have Tim as the bus driver. Hey, Tim, put the radio on so at least can hear the game. Because a lot of times games back in those days were, most teams would broadcast their games. So Tim, the bus driver, would find a station and we'd listen to it in the bus.
Well, Coach, I'm glad you're going to be back next season. We'll save the emotion and the tears for later, but I'm looking forward to next year. Let's get to work so that we have a good long season so that your retirement can happen at Charles Schwab Field in June.
That would be special.
Yes, it would.
It'll be special. It'll be a special season, no doubt about it. So I just want to thank you guys for all the support that you've given us for all these years, and thank Creighton University for the opportunity to do this. So it's been a blast, and we're gonna enjoy the next year doing this. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ed.
You bet. Bye now.